or break. Make it yours.
Welcome back to Worlds 2021 and the State Farm Analyst Desk for Infinity Esports versus Peace, stepping onto the stage in just a couple minutes. But Kaizen, I want to come to you first, as both of these teams currently sit at 0-2. It's starting to feel like a make or break, do or die situation for each of these squads as they find each other tied in the standings and looking to put something in that win column.
It's starting to feel make or break because it is. You know, both of these teams, they need to string together some wins if they want to advance to the second round. And I'll say in favor of Infinity, they've actually looked pretty good despite their losses. Multiple times they've been up in kills versus both Hanwha Life and Red. And I think that shows that from a mechanical perspective and the skirmishing perspective, they do actually have what it takes to take a game off of any of these teams in a best of one. Sometimes it's losing focus in the mid game and the focus there that's required to close out from a position of advantage.
And that's also what's really interesting about today's matchup, because all of a sudden you have the team in, INF that's been struggling towards the mid to late game. They get caught off guard. We saw it against Red Canits as well. And then Peace, on the other hand, who's been really struggling in the early game, taking it back to Babip that was just interviewed. He was talking about when you are playing against the better solo laners, you make one mistake and then you're just out of the game. And that has been the problem for Peace. It's been the issue of not being able to get into your comfort zone in the mid game. So make it or break it. It's the chance for both teams now to break their curses.
It's going to be very interesting to see which one of them can fulfill just that. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Infinity side to kick things off. You mentioned that the team looks solid despite their losses, Kaizen. And in particular, if I'm going to highlight anyone, it's going to be the bot lane. Whitelotus, Ackerman, the two of them putting up solid performances in spite of those losses.
Absolutely, and we saw them on the Lucian and Nami be really, really effective. On a pick like that, you can really dominate lane. It might be the most lane dominate combo right now, and just a sustained lane setup. And they should lean into that. What I would also like to see them do, though, is just play as a team around mid. I think Doublelift actually referred to Cody as the Latin American faker. I have not seen that yet. I want to see that Cody show up, and I want to see the team try to enable him and look for opportunities to make the game as messy as possible and then just force the advantage through the mid lane, which is ostensibly their best player.
I think comparing him to the likes of Faker, he's his own players as well, and I do still think we see some of these shines of light every now and then. In the series against Hanwha Life Esports, this guy had a super solid Herald fight. I think Buggax as well up towards the top side with having this Graves. In general, I like that the bot lane is showing up from this side of Inf, because it's not something we saw towards playoff. They like playing up towards the top side. They love playing for their solo laners. I want to see them get going and utilize even more pressure into this, because great, if your bot lane now is performing while getting the rest of the top side to perform with you, it's just going to be that lacking piece you're missing.
I mean, I love that, right? If it is the bot lane that's stepping up and the solo laners can find what we know they have to show us out there on the Rift, it might be the recipe for success for Infinity here today. Over on the side of Peace, you already talked about it a little bit, Goldberg, in referencing the Babip interview. For them, it's been struggles in lane phase and then having to try and claw back from those deficits in the mid game.
It's been so tough for me to watch as well with Peace. Obviously, they've been playing against really solid laners going off the 4th seed off Korea and China, respectively. But it's also just, I'm not seeing the Peace I saw in the LCO playoffs going off with Tally. This man was super key for his team because his most played champion, it was the like of Rise. It was the likes of Twisted Fate, rather, where he was able to get that mid lane priority and move it out on the map. So far this entire Worlds, he's either been solo killed, been stuck on the tower, and because of this, Peace just haven't been able to play their style. So if you cannot free up this mid lane, you're not going to free up the rest of the map, and you're not going to be able to get to this mid to late game that we want to see Peace be comfortable at.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about that mid lane matchup there, Kaizen, because again, I'll remind everybody earlier today that it was Tally who fell down in the 1v1, giving up a solo kill. So we'll look for him to maybe find a champion he's slightly more comfortable on, like Goldberg is talking about, but to actually stack up in that mid lane in the 1v1 against the like of the faker of Latin America, as you say.
Yeah, and I'll say this. I think the matchup was a matchup where if you are the weaker laner in Irelia versus Azir, you can get abused, and I think that's what happened. I don't think it'll be so much the case versus Cody. Cody, when I think of Cody, I think of more picks like Zoe, and so these picks are not going to dominate you in lane, but are really, really tricky to play against mid and late game. So I think he should have an easier time this time around getting out of lane without being at a huge deficit.
Well, let's take a look at some predictions here for the first time today on day 2 of play-ins. We're going to take a look at your MasterCard fan predictions to see where everyone at home weighs in on this must-win matchup. And it's a slight edge there over to Peace. So it looks like the fans at home do believe that Peace will be able to maybe shore up those weaknesses in lane phase and then utilize their better mid-game to take it home.
Isn't that nice? You know, a team that's gone 0-2 against some of the best teams we have already, and there's still some favor them. You know, I'm not as hopeful as the fans just yet, just because of how little I've been able to see this style of Peace. I mean, if you aren't able to play the early game, you're not going to be able to play the mid game. At least Infinity has been able to show that to me. So I think specifically the early game for today's matchup is going to be so pivotal leading into the skirmishing around the Drakes and the Heralds later on if you really want to get that momentum going.
All right, so I can lock you in for Infinity Esports?
You can.
All right, what about you, Kaizen?
Oh, this is clearly an Infinity favored matchup. I mean, I don't know if it's like OC fans are on the right time zone, so they voted more en masse. But I mean, if we just look at the games that Infinity has had, they've been in much better positions in both of their games versus arguably stronger teams as well, or at least versus Hanwha Life Esports. They were in a position where they're up in kills even though they're behind in gold. Whereas Peace, honestly, they've gotten stomped pretty hard multiple games now. So I would love to see either of these teams glow up, but I think Infinity has clearly had the better showing so far.
All right, well, the fans have spoken, but my analysts sit on the other side of the table. It's time now, though, for the teams to decide their own fate. Let's hand it back over to Valdez and Wolf for the call.
Thank you, Dash and Goldberg, and of course, Kaizen, for your interesting takes on this matchup. Will be pretty cool to see which one of these teams can really step up to the plate, and that's what this is all about. As they say, it is make or break.
That's right. That's what they're saying these days here for the World's 2021 World Championship. And I got to say, I kind of lean towards what Kaizen is saying about Infinity. They have looked stronger than Peace overall when it comes to some of these really critical matchups. Their matchup against Hanwha Life Esports yesterday, they had a pretty big potential to come back, actually. They bounced back and punished a lot of Hanwha Life Esports' plays. Whereas if you compare that to Peace's performance against Hanwha Life, which is kind of the measuring stick, the shared team between these two, it was not even close, unfortunately. As you know, was mentioned by Babip in that interview, you fall behind early, you find yourself falling behind in solo lanes, and you can really just, you know, kiss your chances of victory goodbye sometimes, in the bottom lane especially there. That was where they had their biggest issue. But I think this is part of the reason why we are seeing such high priority on picks like the Irelia very early on in draft, because it's a pick that makes you feel like you've got your destiny in your own control in terms of the solo lane. You're not going to fall too far behind. Don't have too many counter picks. So we'll see if that trend continues here in this third draft.
Which is why the cannon was a little bit, you know, confusing. And it was doing well while it had some jungle attention. But after that, the Jayce really stepped it up, and Ale can do some crazy things. Either way, we are into the third game of the day. Infinity Esports up against Peace. And already you can see the bans here. We got the Poppy ban once again against Vizicsacsi. We got TF and Nidalee off the board. And for Peace aside, they banned LeBlanc, Lucian, and MF.
Yeah. The targeted ban once again against Babip's Nidalee is really cool to see, but this will mean that SolidSnake can play his Lee Sin. Will actually get through the draft here the first time today. That's going to be first pick priority with MF off the board here too for Peace. Does feel like you lose both a really strong jungle pick in this, but also that really top tier bottom lane. So they're going to look towards the Lillia here for Babip once again, going down that AP jungle line. We saw an incredible play from him, the flash in, sleep there to try to bring things back against Hanwha earlier on today. Going to stick with what's comfortable for them here, at least at the start of this draft. See where they're going for this second pick.
Yeah, I mean, I like what he was able to do with the Lillia, and obviously if you have strong lanes to back up the Lillia, stuff that you can gank, you're going to feel very nice. So it kind of flows along with what he said in his interview, how they have been playing. They just need to execute on it, and that's really been the issue. We do have the Irelia is picked up once again. It looks like maybe we will see Cody respond with the Azir.
Yeah, Azir, a very strong pick with Lee Sin for mid-game pressure. And once you hit level 6, you also have that combo potential where you can actually look for the kick, the Emperor's Divide together. You can get a flash at a tally maybe. But they're going to pivot to the Aphelios here. And I think if you're going to run this into a team like Peace, you might want to consider a very defensive support with this, like the Thresh. We haven't seen this pairing yet here in Worlds, but I think it's a very strong opportunity here for Ackerman to keep him safe. The Vi mid, are we? We said we might be waiting a little bit longer, but maybe we're not.
Well, I don't think it's going to be that either. So maybe Cody giving a little bit of some trolling action here. Sylas, definitely something I can see, and it is going to be locked in. They will forgo their support pick for now, which is kind of interesting, especially with how many strong support picks are still left available. They will go ahead and take the Sylas, which I don't think would have been banned by Peace.
Yeah, I don't think so necessarily either. Now, for Peace here, you've got to figure out now if you want to take away your AD carry pick, because you might end up getting locked out of a lot of picks here, or if you want to go ahead and grab your second soul lane. It will take the Jayce here. A lot of counter opportunities against the Jayce in terms of matchups, so it's not the worst to pick her. This is definitely not a Kennen situation like we had last time. And as we've been talking about, as the narrative has gone, locking in both of your soul lanes early does give your opponent counter pick potential, but with lanes like Irelia and Jayce, you feel like you can really just react to what your opponent's going to do next. You don't have to really focus on those matchups because you have two strong ones off the bat. And in fact, now can start to isolate some of Buggax's champion pool here. The Aatrox is removed.
Absolutely, the Aatrox removed. We also had an interesting stat, the MF 100% pick rate when it is not banned. It is banned in this game, so wanted to mention that because we will not see her this time around. And that might continue, with how much success this MF has been having. Wouldn't be surprised to see it continue getting banned.
She was 6-2 earlier, now 7-3, I believe, so taking one win, one loss, but still 100% involvement, as you say. Zig's going to be taken off the board here. Another strong ban against Violet. We saw that earlier. And the Kennen is removed. Interestingly, with both the Irelia and the Jayce, which can, of course, be flexed, it's a very comfortable matchup. But when you consider that you've already got a Sylas on the other side, the Kennen gives you a lot of engage potential. When you're thinking about, okay, I got to deal with this Lee Sin's flank potential, I got to deal with Sylas, who can actually have a really strong engage, and then a Kennen on top of all of that. I understand the ban here, even though it doesn't make sense from a matchup perspective. It does make sense in terms of the synergy with the composition that Infinity Esports are building.
Yeah. Can also just sit it by that Aphelios, and if Peace continue to draft very aggressive kind of divey stuff, you can just throw out the Slicing Maelstrom and say, well, come at us. I dare you. Seen that sometimes before, those reactive Kennen ultimates, but we will not see it in this game because, of course, he was banned. So, we do have a Xayah hover, which is definitely something we haven't been seeing too much of, and it is going to be locked in.
Yeah, the Xayah, very interesting to see here in this tournament. We've seen it as a counter pick in the LPO and in Korea oftentimes for Xayah, but she's fallen out of meta. Xayah has fallen with her. Bit of a Riven hover here. I'd love to see it, but I think we're getting teased again. And it's going to be the Lulu going down there with the Aphelios. So, well, I say that. Okay, so it's going to be the Gnar.
There we go.
And this is obviously a really strong pick to have with the Sylas. You never want to play that into the Sylas because it gives the Sylas a lot of opportunities. But when you have all the engage tools that this composition already has, it can be very terrifying. They're looking for an aggressive support now with this too. The Pike is going to give you a lot of pick potential. The Thresh, I love the Thresh here with a different composition, but they actually go, looks like, for the Rakan here to lock things up. So you have, a lot of power in this lane with the Aphelios to play around that farm defensively against the Xayah. You don't know what your opponent's pick is going to be. The problem with this Rakan pick is now you give them the Leona counter pick, potentially. Now, they're looking towards this Lulu, again, for some of that mobility around the map. A lot more powerful with two strong melee frontliners. And I like the Leona better because strong counter pick for lane. You've got the Xayah already very strong into this matchup, so this is my biggest issue with the Rakan. If you took the Thresh, I'm okay with it. You take the Pike even, you have a lot of pick potential. And there were a lot of options. You mentioned it earlier on. So many supports available here. Amumu actually falls through this draft completely.
Yeah. Definitely a interesting decision there. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the Leona seems very obvious that it does come through there. And pieces draft, like, overall, all the pieces. forgive me, but they come together, except that Xayah feels a little bit out of place. Obviously, it can deal with a little bit of, the Gnar action, the Lee Sin that wants to get in there, the Rakan now even. Feels like that was drafted straight into the Xayah. Maybe just an extra piece to make sure they can lock that down. But, even the Irelia and the Jayce, those are a couple of picks. If you are jumping into a fight and you immediately get CC'd by all of the crowd control that they do have on the side of Infinity Esports, you're not going to be feeling too good. Yeah,
I think that's definitely the logic behind this pick. You also don't have to, run something like a Thresh. You could still keep your safety in check with the Xayah pick while also having an aggressive support that can help your engage, because you do have long-range engage with Vanguard's Edge and the Solar Flare that you can have with Leona. Then you can, of course, follow up with the Zenith Blades. You have a decent amount of poke to start the fight off with the Jayce. There is a little bit of synergy, once again, as we mentioned before, with the Lillia and the Irelia. If the Irelia engage is good, if you can set up for that really nice Vanguard's Edge, it makes it really easy for Babip to follow up and set up a sleep in the middle of a fight. Then you can prioritize the right targets. Alternatively, you could do it the opposite direction, and Babip can be the one who leads that. But that's going to rely on a lot of things. When you have a Sylas on the other side and a Lee Sin, plus that Rakan, Babip's positioning is going to be so important, so crucial if he's going to want to set up for those sleeps. That stopwatch timing will be keeping a close eye on when he can pick that one up, because that's going to allow him that freedom, that get-out-of-jail-free card when he does go ahead and toss that Q through.
Yeah, I have a lot of faith in Babip after what he was able to do from 10,000 gold down against Life Esports. Nearly was able to turn some fights around and got some of them started himself. So definitely enjoying what he has been bringing on this pick. And we are here. It is Infinity Esports up against Peace. Both 0-2, actually, these teams. So it really is make or break. If you lose here, you go down 0-3. There's 5 teams in this plans group. You're not going to make it through. It's just really not going to happen unless you have some insane tiebreaker that somehow you're able to make it in. But very unlikely. So both of these teams, they're kind of fighting for their tournament chances in this one game. This is the situation they put themselves in, because they, of course, have gone up against some other strong teams and lost to them.
Yeah, that's just one of the realities of play-ins, right? Is that, unfortunately, some of the play-ins teams are from major regions and they have a lot more experience than you. So some of these other teams have, obviously, a little bit less experience and are going to struggle in the early parts of groups. But I do feel like what's been really cool about watching Peace play is they bring a completely different flavor to the beginning of this group stage than what we saw from Pentanet GG. They have a very unique style as Tally.
Oh, man. Well, that's happening already. We got the flash out of the Sylas at level 1. And Leave Doublelift did say he was the faker of Latin America, but let me tell you a little story about Tally. As I have to hold on to that as we do get a knock-up, but no, it is Leona with Aftershock, so she is just fine. But I was talking with Atlas before this broadcast, and he gave me a little tidbit that Tally is one of the longest-standing players from the Oceanic region. And he had many names in the past, and he actually played many roles as well. He used to play AD carry, went to top, came to mid lane as well. I don't think I'm going to get to finish my story because SolidSnake is on the roam, and he is unseen for now, going up to the top side. Vizicsacsi will have the Q land onto him, and he will be able to get away. Babip considering it, but he won't come in. But last little tidbit about Tally. He used to be called Tallywhacker, but actually, at one season, he was Wally Tacker, but Atlas told me to say it Wally Thacker or something. And it's a very nice name. I wish he would have stuck with it.
Sure. Hold that thought, though. SolidSnake is not done here. Smite fight on the Scuttle.
They're going at it. Doesn't look like SolidSnake wants a piece of that.
Well, look, I got to say about this, I appreciate the anecdotes about Tally, one of our more experienced players, but one thing that's been true, too, unfortunately here for Peace, in terms of experienced players, is Vizicsacsi actually returning to pro play here in such a high-stakes match, right? He's going to World Series, coming in, big shoes to fill for Appy, the top laner here for Peace, who got them to Worlds in the first place. And he has kind of been camped. Both of their games, he's often been just collapsed on. I think a lot of people consider him the weak link for this team, and you see that Infinity Esports is already kind of going down that same vein. They are able to get his flash away, not able to get more. They do end up losing the scuttle here, as a little exchange down here on the bottom scuttle.
Oh, and maybe getting his revenge. That is Tally getting so low, but he's going to get away just barely. As Cody was getting in on that one, forces the flash away from the Irelia player, Tally. And he's going to leave that lane in a good spot, actually pushing towards him. They both do have teleports, so it won't matter too much. But still, getting that flash away from Tally is big.
Yeah, it is pretty huge. And, you know, it does give you a lot of follow-up power, potentially. Cody himself is going to be flashless. And in my research for Worlds and watching Cody play, you know, the FLICKR comparison I think might be a little bit much, but he is very strong on melee champions or assassins in the mid lane. We saw yesterday on the Zoe, a little bit shakier, a little bit rough on the edges in terms of that kind of precision style champion. Didn't end up coming up big for him, a few misplays there. But on the Sylas, this is a champion that you want to see this guy on. You want to see him pop off and carry. One of the champions that I think it gives him a lot of skill expression and one that he excels at.
He's looking for the trade here once again, but the abscond not going to land. And so you see Tally just standing up to that. And a little bit of BM back and forth, gotta love it. But yeah, that mid lane matchup is really interesting, especially because Tally, you know, he's got so much experience like we were talking about. And standing up to him very, very well. So far, things are going mostly as expected, I have to say. As we do get a big root. That's a double root, actually, down on the bottom side. The Ignite used onto Violet, but he will just be able to walk away, only using his heal in return.
The minion wave here is so massive for Peace. If that minion wave is not there, you could probably just continue to push the issue, go forward there, and actually grab that kill, but not able to do so. With all of those minions, they do have to back away. Only getting the heal out of Violet, in fact, so not even getting any flashes there. So once again, it's all action in the mid lane.
All right, getting in there onto Cody, and down he will go. First blood is going to be given over to Babip in the jungle. Very well earned as they're able to convert this time onto Cody.
He's got a Dark Seal start as well, so going to pick up a few stacks there. Great opportunity here in the mid lane. When Cody goes in like that, you know you have an opportunity to counter there. The Vanguard's Edge to clear things up there at the last moment, traps him in there, and the damage is real at this stage in time. And Peace kind of shutting down the opinions of the analysts going into this third game of tonight. As watch again, Cody trades aggressively. Vanguard's Edge locks him in just long enough here. He steals the Vanguard's Edge himself, but it's not going to save you, not going to get you out. Can't cast it in time, and he's blown up there. Too much damage. Got to be so careful when you don't know where the enemy jungler is about trading that aggressively against a champion like Irelia that can spin around on a dime.
Very nicely done. And yeah, I mean, that's going to get it started here for the side of Peace. They get that one kill. Here's to hoping that the team that gets that early lead can turn it into a little bit more. Only Hama Life today, I believe, was the team that was able to pull that off. And yeah, I mean, they're in a pretty good position right now. They have their Jayce up on the top side about to receive a nice wave that's coming into them, so he's not going to fall too far behind. He's actually playing very passively. I'd love to see the top lane. Yeah, here it is. As he's actually not 100% sure. You know, he doesn't have a lot of vision, and with Gnar up, he's like, okay, I can't really be sure that I can approach this turret. But the second that the Gnar backs away, he can finally scoop up the minions.
I mean, considering what's happened to him all throughout those first two games here, the play-in stage, and earlier in this game where he lost his flash, you got to respect that if you don't know where the Lee Sin is, you've just got to play a little bit passively up there. And Gnar is never going to be able to put that much damage on your turret. Yeah, he has demolished, so you can get a plate. As more trading in the mid lane.
Yeah, this time SolidSnake is nearby, and there is a ward that did spot him, so Babip and Tally just going to laugh at him.
He's got level 6, but I don't think you want to commit with Cody nearby. This is actually really risky.
Ooh, Ackerman's here, and so is Whitelotus. They're just going to jump onto this guy. Even the Moonlight Vigil comes in, and Cody is going to scoop up the kill, as Tally still did not have his flash, so just goes down there Ackerman able to set up that kill.
I feel like 2 kills does not do justice to how much action we've seen in the first 9 minutes of this game. All about the mid lane. And we talked about it going into this series. The analyst mentioned it as well. This is going to be the type of game that is explosive, and getting early leads is so critical here for teams like these that need to get that early advantage, to get that tempo lead. You know, teams like these that aren't as skilled at taking small advantages in the mid game to turning them into late game advantages. You want to snowball this, and it's been very back and forth. Gold lead only 200 or 300 for Peace here in this early game. And again, trading that kill back is so massive, but the CS difference here on the something suddenly in my ear, not sure if that was on stream or not, but anyway, for the CS difference here for Tally is still pretty massive. See a group up here for the Rift Herald.
Yeah, they're going to try to fight for this one. Babip maybe looking to line up that sleep onto multiple. Not quite able to do it, but it's a very aggressive push into the river. It allows them to secure vision control at this point in time. Whitelotus is going to the bottom side trying to catch a wave. So if Peace were going to go for this, this would be their time. Doesn't look like they want to get right on top of that objective just yet, though.
This is actually really tense because this first Rift Herald for Peace, if they take it, is going to explode this advantage for them. Infinity need to contest this. Right now, Whitelotus is kind of pinned down. You don't have a Mega Gnar bar, so getting into this choke point against this Lillia is just so difficult. Emotes flashed here because they know stealing this one away is basically unrealistic at this point. They're going for it.
Oh, but Buggax got that ultimate. The Mega Gnar could not come any sooner. He's begging for it. Here it is, and he's going to get them against the wall. The 2 will immediately go down, and Babip is no different. The sleep comes in way too little and way too late, as it's a triple kill already for Buggax, and they're looking for a bit more. Xayah will be able to back off of that play, but man, Infinity take a huge lead.
What a great decisive engage. I said unrealistic, but they forced it. They made it work. They're able to pick up the Eye of the Herald here, and it was a perfect engage here from Buggax, who's now got 3 kills on this Gnar. Just barely is able to get that Gnar bar up. I mentioned right before the fight, he didn't have it. Is able to get that up, able to get the multi-knock into the wall. And Peace stuck in that choke point, trying to back away. Almost felt like it was a shoo-in for them in terms of the comms there, because they weren't positioned well to retreat from that. They wanted to stick the landing on finishing off that Herald. I mean, look at how low this goes before the engage. Look at Buggax's Gnar bar. And look at where he is, 1v3.
Yeah.
Such a perfect play from the Latin America player. Goes into the brush here, ward has to be used, and then boom. Double stuns there, the follow-up from Ackerman. So perfectly done in a choke point like that. They were the ones coming in.
We got more fighting. They're trying to burst down Cody before any of this goes, and they will get down, actually. SolidSnake as well in a lot of trouble, and Infinity caught in the mid lane. Nicely set up here from the side of Peace. It was kind of one of those situations of nobody knows who's stuck in with the other one, but actually it was Peace that got the advantage on the back of that, and now they're looking for this Infernal Drake.
Yeah, they're going to grab the Infernal Drake, the Scuttle with it, so a lot of extra gold and experience going over to Babip, but the big story here is that Tally is going to get more gold. He's sitting at 0, 2, and 3, but that doesn't really tell the story of his lead against Cody, because he's 40 CS up right now. And all of those minions crashing into the mid turret means less gold for Cody.
Buggax has red buff. Vizicsacsi has no flash right now. He's just going to get run down in the top side, while we had the MasterCard first Mythic and the Infernal Drake coming down at the same time. So at least Peace are able to get that, but man, some of their lanes, you know, especially Buggax is basically just running the show by himself. I mean, this is insane.
And the thing is, Sylas, against this composition, can steal, obviously, the Vanguard's Edge, which is going to be quite critical, or the Solar Flare. And even though he is behind, even though he isn't fed, talking, of course, about Cody here in this game, he's going to be able to help set up with those ultimate hijacks Buggax to carry some of these team fights. Then you've got Aphelios and what he can do on top of that CC. So this is not a lost game for Infinity by any means. They've even taken a gold lead right now, but the disadvantage in mid can be shored up by this massive lead for the Gnar on the top side.
Yeah, and you know, generally Gnar not a carry champion, but when he gets Divine Sunder and he's 4-0, 13 minutes into the game, anybody can be a carry. So
yeah,
your dreams can be lived out. Even you Singed players out there, or any other kind of tanks, even the Ornn players out there, you can do it. And
just watch Morgan.
Yeah,
or Kingen.
True. Yeah, I mean, Peace kind of grouped up for it at that Rift Herald fight, and Buggax found the perfect timing. And really, it's all kind of the dominoes falling after that. And Sally's trying his best in the mid lane. He's really trying to be oppressive on the Irelia. This is something they even talked about in that recent interview with Babip. Like, they need to win these lanes and get a comfortable spot in the mid game. As I say that, but Tali's getting CC'd down. The Vanguard's in from the Sylas doing a lot, but he's able to turn it around as Babip comes in, and the Q from the Lee Sin will sail wide, and Tali gets out unscathed.
Yeah, Buggax not able to get in and make that impact there. This was actually really well played by Tali because he knows his teammates are going to collapse in and save him. What looked like an extremely risky and greedy play ends up being the correct one. They're able to bait Cody in, get a pick here, stave off this Rift Herald pressure, and continue to maintain that control around the bottom side of the map. And unfortunately, yet again, even though Buggax has so much gold, if he doesn't have the ability to Gnar into these fights or actually set up with Mega Gnar, be in the skirmish itself, that's when you feel the Sylas deficit. That's when you feel, okay, this Aphelios doesn't have a Mythic yet. He's still working on that shield bow right now. He's still a ways away from that. These small things, these small deficits in the mid lane, in the bot lane, are going to be very impactful when Buggax isn't there. Later on, when we see real straight-up front-to-back 5v5 team fights, that's when Infinity can obviously use this to their advantage, the fact that they have a 4-0 Gnar. We just have to get to those fights first, and they have to stave the bleeding before then. We're looking for a fight on the Tali right now.
Yeah, he's trying to bait him in for the Leona, but guess what? SolidSnake's here too. Nice dodge by Tali. He's trying to buy time for the Lillia to make his way up here. As a sleep will come in onto both of them. The Lee Sin trying to flash away, but it's not going to be enough. Swept up by the Lillia. Big Gnar into the wall, but Buggax is just a little bit burnt out. And he will get taken down, shut down by Babip, who is 6-1.
6-1, 10 stacks on that Dark Seal. That's a ton of extra gold going up to this Lillia, who makes the right call to come through. And I gotta say, Tali's performance on this Irelia has been fantastic. His lead in the mid lane is part of why Cody is struggling to actually make an impact in some of these mid-game fights, where he's not able to teleport in. His teleport's often down. He's not able to join. If he did, he'd be crushed too. He has to kind of sit back and farm, so you know you have that advantage in the side lane. And then when you add this Lillia coming in on top of it, Tali goes in, is aggressive, and then it's just been so good at using Irelia's Qs to get out of dodge, escape, and actually bait Infinity in. You see Babip come through there for the finish. And as you mentioned, he's 6-1 in this game now. Went for the burst damage again with this Luden's Echo. And I gotta say, Infinity really struggling to stick through this mid game where they can, if they don't take these poor fights, if they don't end up getting picked and overextending here, you can absolutely come back in the late game with the comp that you have. But the overextension here is real. Double sleep into the follow-up here from Babip, and that's 2 kills.
Yep. The new Axe effect replay shows us all the action here as Peace really just shutting them down quite literally. And yeah, just really doing a good job, I think, playing around Buggax, and him trying to kind of carry the team himself, playing around that pressure is allowing Peace to find opportunities up there as well. As Infinity a little bit strung out here at the moment. SolidSnake is getting this one down. They lose their bottom turret, but the Gnar still has pressure up in the top side. Even though he did get taken down and shut down by the Lillia, he's still very oppressive, and he's actually looking for more. The autos come in. Vizicsacsi tries to hop away, and at least he will be able to live while his team gets another objective.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Vizicsacsi right now is he's just kind of an annoyance. He's able to, you know, hold down the fort on the top side of the map, but every time resources are committed to kill him, I mean, he's only died once this game. Every time that happens, you know, they're getting objectives on the bottom side of the map. Violet's able to farm freely, or you grab another Drake. It's the second one of the game here for Peace. And this 4-0 Gnar, who's now 4-1, doesn't feel like a 4-0 Gnar. You know, we talked about what he can do, the ifs, right? And he had that miraculous play around that first Rift Herald. But unfortunately, Gnar isn't able to, until you go to those real 5v5 team fights, use that lead to gain advantages elsewhere, as Whitelotus is alone.
Well, he's going to have to flash out of that one. If he didn't flash, he was so dead. So definitely the right maneuver there, but Peace grouping up real quick. Great macro maneuver. They get into the mid lane, take it down. They get the flash out of Whitelotus, and then they back away. They're going to use that gold to pick up some items as soon as they can.
I mean, unfortunately, Cody still hasn't picked up his first mythic yet. He's the only one realistically in this game who doesn't have one outside of the support. So picking up some of that extra gold in the top lane, trying to struggle, trying to get by on low eco because of the CS situation he found himself in against Tally, really hurts Infinity's ability to use this Gnar power. And yes, they pick up the second Rift Herald, and they are going to be able to grab a free turret here and get a deep charge. But you've got to be so careful about overextending here right now. Buggax doesn't have his Gnar bar, so there's not going to be much to gain here, unfortunately. And this means that if you could look at the top side of your map, guess where Tally's going? He's got a full wave up there. He knows that Infinity was grouped bottom. He's fairly free to push that. And he might just have a free turret on his hands, and Peace are going to rotate to support it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you can feel Peace slowly taking over this game with the Irelia with the 6-1 Lillia, who has 2 items already at this point. Xayah's complete as well. It's just so oppressive. With the 10 stacks of the Dark Seal, as you mentioned, it's just like you're not really going to be able to kill Babip unless you CC him 100-0. And that's a really scary thought, especially because Ackerman's trying to get this engaged. Here comes the Lee Sin. Really nice kick over the wall, actually, into the stolen solar flare from the Sylas, so they get the Leona. As here we go, finally they're able to lock down Babip, and all of a sudden, a couple of members going too deep in the enemy jungle, and you're going to lose Baron potentially.
You had to do Babip dirty. You had to say, unless they 100 him to 0 on CC, and he was pretty much locked down that whole time. Teleport coming through here as they look to contest this.
Yeah, looks like Infinity want to go for the turn. It is against the Xayah. Not going to be easy to lock down, but with the Mega Gnar, they're looking for Tally. As here comes SolidSnake. Gonna look for the slow at least, and this is quite the far chase. They might be able to get Tally, maybe, as Cody nearly dies to Violet. And Tally is still on the run, not gonna be able to find another flawless duet. And at least they get the kill, I suppose, but Peace at least stopped them from taking the Baron.
Yeah, Peace are gonna be pretty happy with this. Yes, you lose Tally, but you're able to grab the aggro off the Baron. You're able to buy enough time for Babip to respawn here. Cody gets very low. Some minions here on the top side of the map, but we'll be fine. Thankfully for him, is going to be able to get out of there. We'll lose a little bit of this wave. Unfortunately, you see the question mark ping there, but it happens to everyone. Is finally got his Everfrost online now, so he's going to be able to have a bigger impact in these upcoming team fights. Can set up for some roots, can try to punish Babip. As we saw in that last fight, you called it out right before. Babip actually can be CC'd 100-0 if he is isolated while he's trying to be greedy. Meanwhile...
Oh, we're not wasting any time getting into more fights. Buggax trying to go 1v1 with Vizicsacsi, but we got the teleport coming in, but it's not doing enough for the side of Peace. And now the Sylas is getting to work, but he's got Ignite onto him, and you see the damage here from Tally is just a little bit too much. Cody is going to get flashed on and hit down with that W. As now we do have the rotations coming in. We got Infinity looking for a little bit more. As the sleep will go down and the Zonius is there for Babip, but where is the follow-up? It's just not there. Only Tally's able to get Gnar down and does have to back away. Whitelotus being there means that Peace cannot extend the rest of the fight without their 80 carry.
This is so unfortunate for Peace because you end up losing your flash for Babip. He uses ult there, but without Violet in this fight, as you mentioned, the follow-up damage just isn't there. Tally's not ahead enough to where he can do it alone. Yes, he's got a Sterak's and a Gore Drinker. That's going to buy you a lot of time. You're going to survive a lot, but you don't have the damage to finish off those targets without an 80 carry behind you. And that's the issue here is Peace, I think, just kind of their eyes too big for their stomach in this fight, feeling, okay, we're really ahead. We can win this fight. And it's a perfect sleep. It's the one you're looking for, but there's no follow-up damage. And now Zonia's on cooldown. They are going to group up for this Drake, and with the resets here for Infinity, it's actually going to give them a free soul point. But it does feel like this could have been a much nicer position had Peace not fully committed to that last fight.
Yeah, and a lot of these fights, to be honest, have kind of been like, okay, well, we have more vision. I think we got this guy caught out. Let's go on to it. And then it's like this pile-on effect where it's like, oh, who can get there? Who can get there on time? Should we use a teleport? And like everybody's just diving into the pit. The macro here in this later stage of the mid-game it doesn't feel structured very much, you know? It's like we got this 1v1, we got a big roam down to the bottom side, and then all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose and everybody's teleporting and running down bot.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at how this fight started, it looked fantastic, right, for Peace. They had the numbers advantage, but Cody's able to survive long enough, gets that last second flash away, and that buys enough time for the big rotation down. And without Violet here, I mean, look at where he is right now. He's not even crossed the midpoint of the map. You just can't win this fight. And this attempted turn is the part that's just a little bit too optimistic for me to stomach, because yes, it is a great sleep opportunity, and yes, you are a fed Lillia, but you alone can't do it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, the second you see that Aphelios, you could have said, okay, there's 4 men slept, like maybe Tally can jump in and kill everybody. Well, it's so risky. It's so risky to do that into the Aphelios who's got Crescendum and is just waiting. He's champing at the bit. Here we go. Speaking of which, they're going to get on top of the Leona, who has to blow her stopwatch, as now trying to go forward. The Solid player not able to do too much, and now we'll go to Leona first, as we have Babip getting wrecked on the top side, not able to survive for long enough. Tally is trying to go 1v5 quite literally. He's going to get one, and now we have the Xayah looking for the turn. Unbelievable plays right now as the Irelia goes in, but unfortunately gets sunk down. Maybe the dream is dead. Violet and Vizicsacsi trying to turn this one around, and they should be able to, but Buggax is way too fed as the red buff. Will it be enough? No, it will not, as Buggax will clean up the house and be the only one left to stand.
I mean, we're 27 kills into this game at 25 minutes, and this is the kind of action you expect to see. And finally, Buggax is 12-2. Gnar now is starting to really show itself here, but it was a really close fight, and you could see the potential of what this team comp for Peace can do when their AD carry is there, when Violet is here. Now, if he had actually, you know, a third item online, if he has an Infinity Edge here in this fight, I think they end up winning that swimmingly. He's not quite that far online just yet. He's 1-1-3 in this game, so we haven't reached that late game Xayah power yet. But what's scary for me for Infinity is that you can see that how difficult it is to kill this Irelia in these team fights, and then the follow-up CC in these longer fights here for Peace just allows Violet free reign. And yes, at the end of the day, a fed Buggax is going to clean up house, but look at how much space Tally buys for Violet. Like, he is untouched in this fight. Now, I know you're probably watching this thinking, well, Wolf, but I mean, they still technically win the fight. But this is terrifying, because in 5 minutes time, you won't win this fight against Violet. If this sort of fight happens again, you don't get those blow-up kills, if you can't get on top of the AD carry, he's not supposed to be the last one to die. If he's the last one to die, you got a big problem as Infinity.
This is why we're seeing so much priority on the Irelia, by the way. Not only good in the lane, but also you build a couple of items. I'm sure you guys know the name of the 2 items, for Drinker and the Sterix. And you run in there, oh, how about a Death Stance as well? And how about some more armor against everybody who's fed that's not Sylas, right? You deny so much more damage even just with that one item. And yes, you could potentially get CC down, but you're Irelia. So like, he's just in a position to carry in this game because of that. The Sylas is not really ending up doing much in this one. He has those 2 items online, and not to mention the 3rd item, which makes him even more tanky and survivable in these fights. And especially when there's 4 people on top of you, you're going to get even more value out of that Gore Drinker, and it makes you even more annoying to handle. And having the majority of your damage being basically only the Aphelios is, you know, sometimes it's enough, but sometimes when you're facing a Irelia, it is not. As we're seeing an engage right now onto the Jayce. They're trying to drop down Vizicsacsi, and they will be able to. They take down the Jayce. A huge sleep is coming in. Let's see if the Irelia can get it done. Tally is in the back line doing so much damage, but he will eventually be taken out by Buggax. As we do not see the Aphelios this time, but Buggax is like, I don't care, I'm the AD carry. Unfortunately, not really able to stand up to Violet and his red buff. He is chasing them down, and this Xayah, in a game like this, is ending up getting some decent value.
And Valdez, I said it was going to take maybe 5 more minutes, and then we'd see a fight where it doesn't go like that, but it was only moments after the previous one where we see Violet clean up house again, and Tally, he survives so long with these items, as you mentioned, that it just becomes nigh impossible to lock him down. And we're going to see this Drake fight here. This is for Cloud Soul itself, not Cloud Soul Point. They've already gotten that.
Steal? Nope.
Nope.
Nice try.
But The issue here is that as Infinity, your options now feel very limited in terms of blowing up a carry. You look for the Jayce in this scenario here. It's Vizicsacsi who's actually locked down, but look at Babip in this fight. Look at how decisive he has been all night long. Flash forward, multiple sleeps, 4 set up here into the Zonias. You can't lock down this Lillia, who gets another Q off in the fight, and everyone is focusing down Tally. You've got to get on top of Violet here, but it's just too little too late. And if Violet, again, if he's able to survive long enough, we talked about it in the draft, Xayah is one of those champions that is impossible to lock down when you've got such a strong front line. And Peace look like they have practiced this Lillia comp so well. Every single one of these fights where you see Babip make that decisive flash, you know this is planned from the beginning. Vizicsacsi is just the catalyst. Yes, he goes down, but you can win that 4v5 fight with a 4-man sleep.
You can see how much damage the Gnar is doing. The Aphelios actually one of the first to die on the side of Infinity. And the problem is that he's doing a lot of damage and he's mini Gnar, right? So, yeah, I mean, he's got a bunch of items. He's got Wit's End. He's got the Sterix, right? And he'll be in your face and hitting you a lot, but he's not getting that big stun of the wall. He's not Mega Gnar, and that's because that fight was basically like, I'm Rakan and I'm going to press my buttons and I found a free kill. Well, it's free until you overextend and you get 4-man slept by Babip, who's having yet a wonderful game, another wonderful game on this Lillia. So Peace now in control of this game. Feels like it's gone a bit back and forth on that one.
Sure.
As we were definitely expecting this game to be close.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting this many kills, to be honest. 32 so far.
And the Aphelios, you know, he's an item behind, but he will get his Infinity Edge fairly soon. He's got his Collector online. The problem is that getting this, you know, Irelia down to enough health where you can actually proc that and get that kill is really a big question for Infinity. They are obviously building a little bit of heal deny as well. But I think the biggest issue for me is that yes, you have a really tanky Gnar. Yes, he could do a lot of damage. He could set for these stuns. But you've got to take the fights in the right moments. I think looking for a single target blow-up when Lillia exists and she is this fed might not be the plan anymore. You might actually have to just front-to-back team fight here. Play around the fact that if you do lock up the Irelia long enough, you might be able to kill a SolidSnake.
Oh man, he was backing on a ward, and that is not the time to be doing that. Over the wall with the ult flash, the kick not going to help out too much. Even nearly gets Cody into some trouble. As Babip going to take that kill, secure it for himself, and now Peace will take a lovely Baron.
The positional advantage they have here, and with the enemy jungler down, you know you can rush this down with Violet having 3 items online here. Vizicsacsi in good position to poke.
They're going to try to contest here, but as you mentioned, no smite, no hope of taking the Baron. And now you see the turn comes out here from the side of Peace, and they'll just get a bonus orange buff on top of it all, taking down the Gnar. As Babip even getting a bit more, going to force that cleanse out of Whitelotus. Had to use a bunch of stuff to get that out, but you can see Peace, they are not done just yet. The flash comes in, big charm though, and now we got Whitelotus actually kiting back. You gotta be careful about this. TP now coming in, but it looks like Peace, even though they get themselves into a little bit of a dangerous spot, they will be okay.
Yeah, Violet just has the escape available. They didn't have to use any tools on the turn. The sleep, you know, forcing the cleanse after the Baron is taken. You know, Violet popping his ultimate there way later on, so you could be so aggressive. Tally's not even looking twice on the rotation, and he knows his teammates are very likely going to be safe there in that skirmish. But it all comes down to SolidSnake getting picked on that ward, and that's why you've got to be so careful about where you're sweeping. As a team like Infinity here, if you lose your jungler at this critical moment before a Baron, your chances of going to the World's group stage might just be nil. Like, that's a moment that Infinity are going to look back on, and everything that happened before this feels so insignificant compared to that one mistake, that one back location where Peace get the first Baron power play.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And, you know, Infinity's comp here, by the way, Red Bull Baron power play. Congratulations to Peace for picking that one up. It is a big one so far, nearly 4,000 gold with this Red Bull Baron power play, so you can see the goal difference on time. It was very close for an extremely long amount of time, but now it's all Peace that have a pretty massive lead. And now with this Elder coming up in a minute and a half, we have Mega Gnar though in a bit. We see Buggax looking for a bit more. He won't be able to take it down. So we'll have to see if he can get Mega Gnar back here for this Elder fight. I believe he should be able to.
Yeah, this is going to be really critical as it's timing out now. And This is when Peace are going to look to pounce. There's the Solar Flare.
Well, they want Whitelotus. He doesn't have cleanse this time. If the stun went down, that could have been his doom, as the stun here from the Irelia going to be missed, as we got SolidSnake on the backline, but he's being torn to shreds right now by the Xayah. And Infinity just a little bit out of sorts here as we have the flash come in, the sleep onto the Aphelios, and now will come the cavalry. Peace are looking to take down all of these bowling pins in one fell swoop, as Tally now diving under the turret will be able to snipe this one. Actually, Jayce does pick it up, but with the Baron, they will be looking to end this game.
Oh, very, very close game, back and forth. But once Tally's lead started to snowball so much that he was practically immortal in these team fights, Babip's follow-ups were solid, and this is a very, very decisive win here in what was a very tumultuous mid-game for Peace. Their chances of making it out of play-ins and going to the group stage hang by a thread, but there is still a thread of hope. You look at some of these later fights, unfortunately for Infinity Esports, SolidSnake gets caught. You're grouping up around that Elder Drake fight, or that Elder Drake pit, but what are you fighting for there? They're split up. There's a disconnect between the front line. Buggax gets dropped on. The back line is running away, and in that moment, Peace are decisive. You see this time and time again from Tally, the veteran, on this Irelia. He was afraid of nothing in this game. And he's definitely my MVP coming out of this one, because his plays, his survivability on this Irelia gave Violet so much space, gave Bob the ability to engage in. And this is a very pivotal win here for Peace, because it keeps their chances alive. And as you mentioned, they had the toughest opponents in the group starting things off. You get the momentum rolling here for your last few games, maybe you can turn it around. Maybe you make it through that tiebreaker. There's still hope.
There is definitely still hope. It's not going to be easy, but it has to start somewhere, and they do pick up a win. Unfortunately for Infinity Esports, I don't believe they have a chance now to make it out of the group, but they gave it a good shot, as we were hearing before from the analysts as well. You know, a lot of their games were very close, and this one included, right? It sometimes comes down to some of the best of ones not really going too well for you. So we'll have to wait and see what they can do in the future. But that is going to do it for that game. Any final thoughts on that one, Wolf?
Really nice play from Peace overall. Infinity gave it their best. It was a rough group for them, but, you know, sometimes you make those critical mistakes. It's unfortunate.
Absolutely. So we'll have to see what happens in the future of this group. But, guys, we're going to go to a break, and we'll hear from the State Farm Analyst Desk after the break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Make or break. Make it yours.
Red Bull gives you wings.
It all leads to this. Make or break.
Vitality will take them!
A new era is waiting. Make it yours.
Welcome back to the State Farm Analyst Desk, where I can confidently say that was the most exciting game of the day that we've had so far here as Peace finds victory over Infinity Esports to move to 1-2, keep their hopes of moving on to the next round alive, and they do it in awesome fashion. Again, it was neither the cleanest game from either of these two teams, Goldberg, but at the end of the day, they showed us what we were talking about from earlier, their ability to pull it together in the mid to late game, use their synergy as a team to ultimately overcome Infinity.
I, for one, did not think it was awesome. I still think...
What do you mean?
I think it...
What?
It was a tough way to get there for them. I think it could have been, still way cleaner. But let's take it to the point you were talking about, right? So okay, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt here. Let's take it to the point where we do get to the late game, and we are watching these fights. Because I think Tally on the Irelia, despite not being the one picking up the kills all the time, had so much pressure juggling around the members of Infinity to try kind of get the ball going towards these late game team fights. And obviously, the man of the match, really, for me here, Babip in the jungle, really showing up, not only in his lane presence, but also in the team fights, finding so many crucial sleeps to really make everything easier for Peace.
Well, then no surprise that Babip becomes our Oppo player of the game here in game number 3 of the day. And this is where I want to turn to you, Kaizen, because it sounds like maybe you're a little bit more aligned with me on the awesomeness of this game.
Hey, man, I've been up since 2 a.m., and I thought that was awesome. That woke me up. And look, this was a sloppy game, but I loved it. This was Peace showing up. I was doubting them. I thought Infinity was clearly the better team. But what they showed from Peace is that they have multiple players who can step up. Just like Goldberg was saying, this was the Babip and Tally show. It was basically the mid difference that allowed Peace to sustain through the fact that there was a 12-2 Gnar on the field and created the space for the Xayah to be able to deal all the damage to clean up in these fights. If you notice, a lot of these fights were spent with Whitelotus trying to run away because he did not have the robust front line because his Sylas was down so much CS. So really, really fun game. I feel bad for Buggax, but really excited for Peace.
But still at the same time, I'm worried for Infinity as well, because you get this good of an early game with, from the Rift Herald fight where you just got everything going, the 4-0 Gnar in matchups where he shouldn't do well. This Gnar was picked into Irelia and Jayce, and this is not usually a matchup that's supposed to work. He makes it work anyway, and despite this, they just can't clean it up when you get to these late game fights.
I mean, it is a perfect example of what we were talking about when it comes to this Infinity squad. We're going to see some amazing play out of Buggax as an individual, but struggling to convert those individual plays into team-wide success, Kaizen.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem here is, and this is an issue we've seen with Infinity multiple games now, when they have these advantages, they sort of lose focus and they don't actually play around it. There's a fight where Gnar is top right here, and they don't have vision in the enemy jungle, right? So this is a situation where you have a 4-0 Gnar. Why do you not either have your whole team there if you don't have vision, or have vision so you don't need your whole team there? And instead, they choose to go into this fight 2 versus 3. They don't have the reinforcements available to get a numerical advantage, and they end up throwing away the gold advantage that they had invested in the Gnar. So it was really disappointing to see from Infinity, and it felt like, honestly, Buggax was in a position where he was fighting against his team rather than having his team fight for him.
And on the flip side, it highlights that point you were making again, the ability of Peace to kind of recognize how they are going to be able to come back into this game, bringing Tally up to the top lane with support and jungle by his side to convert, big shutdowns. We have to remember, as Kaizen said, that was a 4-0 Gnar at that point, okay? So taking him down of all people is a massive influx of gold.
Definitely, but I think as much as we can celebrate peace towards the mid to late game here. I also fancy now their chances going up against these other teams, because now we finally do see if you get to the mid game where you're not completely shut down by the laning phase, but you're actually the one who gets to punish them. Like, I'm thinking back to the mid lane with Tally just blowing up the summoner spells early from the Sylas. Like, the fact that he's not getting solo killed himself, the fact that he's able to utilize these resources for himself and later down towards the team fights, that gives me hope for OC as a region to still make it, because remember, you just have to not finish last place. You just have to do better than them.
Exactly. And so, yeah, refocusing back towards peace as they were the victors in this game, Kaizen, I think it should be recognized that people might question how they even ended up down or against a Gnar that was 4-0, 13-2 at one point, as you said before, given the fact that they had both Jayce and Irelia, two solid matchups, either of which that could have played into Gnar. And so, again, we'll continue to hammer that point that they find themselves at times in deficits that they have to claw out of. And against tougher and tougher opponents as you move forward through this tournament, that's going to be a harder hill to climb.
Yeah, and you're not going to have that luxury versus the harder opponents. I think fortunately here, Infinity lost focus and Peace was given opportunities back into the game. And granted, we should acknowledge that I think Babip and Tally just played mechanically extremely well. But you can't rely on that every game, particularly against teams that are going to have more mechanically proficient players. So what I want to see is them continue to focus on just having a stable early game. You don't even need to get ahead. We've seen that post laning phase, they're actually fine on the map, but just make sure to stabilize that early game because it almost got out of hand.
But guys, they've already played against LNG. They've already played against Hammer Live Esports. I'm not saying the other teams are not good. That's coming up. I'm just saying they started at the toughest hill, and now they just, they get to roll down. They have an easier time going downhill instead. So I'm more hopeful for them now than I was before.
A big victory for Peace and a momentum builder, to say the least. But here, as we head to a commercial break, check out Red's pick as the song that represents their play style and the rest of the teams competing at Worlds on the official Low playlist on Spotify. They've chosen Industry Baby by Lil Nas X, an absolute banger, to say the least.
Good song.
It all leads to this. Make or break.
Vitality will take them.
A new era is waiting.